Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Schlansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer, and I am going to niche slap you today. That's right. We are going to be talking all about niches and whether or not you should dive into one. One of the questions I got from a young adult, and I got to tell you, like, if you don't participate in something like this in your local community, you are really, really missing an opportunity. If you reach out to some of the local high schools, a lot of people have like a business professionals of America or on young entrepreneurs or young leaderships, something of that nature, in which they take young adolescents and they start giving them business plans and business models and different sectors that they start working on. And I work with this a little bit in my community locally, where you take young adults and help them structure a business plan, and then you get to proofread that business plan and point out all the areas that they excelled at and then the areas that they just really tanked at. I did this actually just a few months ago with a young culinary artist that wanted to start their own restaurant, and they were competing nationally, and we were able to strip through their business plan. They had to come up with a proposed menu. They had to come up with a marketing strategy. They had to come up with ambiance. I mean, just so much of this that goes into building a business. I love the phrase that says, you cannot stay woke and build something. You cannot stay woke and build something. And so one of the complaints that we oftentimes hear about this generation, this Gen Z, is that they just don't get it. But what we don't get, what the older generations don't get, is that we are only seeing the highlight reels of the algorithms built in to feed us distaste for what we don't like. And so if you're seeing a lot of things pop up on your social media, or you're getting a lot of quote unquote news articles that tell you how awful this generation is, then how many times have you stepped out in the street? How many times have you gone to your community centers? How many times have you reached out to teachers and said, tell me about the best and the brightest of your group? How can I help them? How can I empower them? Because we are only seeing the information that is designed to make us upset. It is designed for us to feel distaste and discomfort and dislike, and to talk and to share that information. And so seldom are we celebrating young adults who are just crushing it, who do want more. And so if you, like me, want to be a part of sculpting a generation that does go on and build something, because we live in the most fascinating time on earth. This is an incredible time to be alive. No other time in history have we had so much information readily available to us and within our fingertips, within our grasp, within our ability. I mean, from ChatGPT and using it as a research assistant in order to summarize classes and texts and really help us kind of extract the information that we need, to YouTube University, as we all like to call it. If you don't know something, go learn it. There's so many online programs. And one beautiful thing that COVID did for all of us was really become a catalyst of giving us online learning management systems. So these LMSs can teach you anything. They can teach you how to cook, how to fix a dirt bike, how to build a better business, how to learn emotional intelligence if that's not something you're affluent in. And it's just incredible to have a time in our lives where knowledge is so readily accessible to all of us, and it doesn't come at a cost that is unbearable. It doesn't come at some high tuition fee, or there's not a barrier of entry in order to get into that. Now, you can argue with me and say, yeah, but you have to have Wi-Fi, you have to have a cell phone. Okay, but go look up your local low-income programs. Almost everyone has a cell phone, and almost everyone has access to a Wi-Fi, especially after COVID. Maybe it's not true of every part of the world, but it is true of certainly those of us that are blessed enough to live and work in first world countries. So when you go talk to these young adults and you get to see how their mind is thinking, and it's really a neat experience, because they come at it with such beautiful naivety that they don't see all the hardships and all the perils that are going to exist to them later. And that's kind of refreshing when you start out with a new idea instead of all the naysayers and everyone telling you why it won't work and what you shouldn't do and all of these things. And so I had the opportunity to do this with some business professionals of America, and they would submit their business plan. They'd kind of hash through it, and then they could go through a fake interview in which they were were applying for lending and to see if their project was going to get started or not. And we got to the interview of one, and they wrapped up kind of early, and she said, "Hey, I know we're going into the lunch hour. Could I trouble you for 5 more minutes of your time?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. What's going on?" And she said, I've got a burning question, and I really would like your background experience on it." I said, "Absolutely." She said, "Is it better to be an expert in one subject or to know a lot of every subject?" And I thought that was an incredible question coming from a 17-year-old girl who was trying to apply to medical school. And she was trying to really figure it out. Should I just become an expert in one field of study, or should I open myself up to some general practice in which I'm trying to, become double boarded and know all these different avenues? And I said, that's a really powerful question. And if I was at 17, I would become the expert in one subject. I would pick one subject matter and I would do nothing but drill down into that subject until I became an expert, because this is the byproduct of becoming an expert that most people forget about, is that when you deep dive and study into one subject matter, it's going to have so many different applications. It's going to have so many different frames of references. You're going to have to learn so many other things as a byproduct of learning how to be an expert in just one subject. And so when you look at financial planning, what if instead of becoming a generalized practitioner, what if instead of having a little bit of knowledge on all 5 subjects of financial planning, what if instead you became an expert in just one of those? So if you were starting out your career, you just got your CFP, and one of the things that I often have to remind myself, we get young financial advisors all the time. We are actively hiring at our RIA, Shalansky and Associates. So I've been seeing a lot of applications come through. And when I see these applications and people are getting their degrees in finance, they want to get their CFP, maybe they're going for their CFA, all these different things. But all of those designations give you a very broad understanding. Even if we look at the way that we structure collegiate level courses, right? Your first 2 years, you're having to do your general education requirements. You're not becoming an expert in anything. In fact, instead, what you're doing is learning the things you should have learned in high school, but we have a sincere problem in the United States where we teach to the lowest common denominator, and we allow those that are excelling in subjects and who do want to have advanced education to be held down by teaching to that lowest common denominator. And so instead of learning all these general education requirements in high school, where you should have, we have stretched out college and made it this 4-year program because we didn't want high school to carry all this stuff. So when you're learning all this general education stuff, it isn't until your junior, senior year of your undergraduate program that you're actually getting to focus on the subject you're most passionate about learning or think is going to propel you into the career that you're headed towards. And then after you graduate and get your degree, then it really starts. Right? I mean, so many of us that graduate with a degree in finance, we go on to learn that degree in finance was just the first hurdle. It doesn't actually mean anything. We got to go get these different designations. Maybe it's a series. Maybe it's a, registered financial consultant. Maybe it's your CFP, your CFA, all of these different things that we have to then go and learn after we get done with that primary education part of it, which, is a lot of college. It's that first hurdle, that primary part that we got to get completed to becoming the young professional that we want to become in many cases. So when we pass these hurdles and we get done and we go to these tests, it's still a generalization. Even the CFP designation is a super general. I mean, you're learning a lot of information on a lot of different topics. So we pass all these series, all these designations, and we get all this alphabet soup behind our name. And then what are we an expert of? Because the more credentials you have behind your name, you're showing me that you are an expert of taking tests. Congratulations. I love to be a lifelong student. I could care less what designations are after my name or before it for that matter. I just want to be a perpetual student. I'm not look on down on people that go out and get lots of credentials. If that is your jam and that's how you like to learn, go for it. Go for it 100%. Lord knows in a different life, I could have been a lifetime student. I love knowledge. I love education, and I don't care about the piece of paper paper that comes before or after. I just want to learn. So I get it if that's your jam, if that's what you're really into. But a lot of times, a lot of those different designations, not all of them, because you can go back and get a mastery in one subject, are real broad. So if you are a young professional just starting out, or even if you're mid-career and you're looking at, okay, how do I level up? How do I take this to the next level? Maybe focusing in just one particular area and becoming an expert, getting your 10,000 hours into studying just that subject is going to what propel you forward. And that's what ties this into niching. So when we talk about developing a niche is a very specific targeted market that you're going to go after. And we talk about niches when it comes to marketing a lot of times. And a lot of people are like, well, my niche is pre-retirees 5 years before retirement. Is that your niche? Is that really your defined niche, or is that a cop-out because that's a really easy one to fill because people are more oftentimes looking for financial advisors when they're 5 years away from retirement? And also, let's really be honest here, that's when most of the assets have accumulated, and that's where we as financial advisors are going to go and make the most money. So is that your target niche? Is that genuinely who you're really targeting when it comes to all of your marketing materials? So let's dive into niching. All right, if we were together in person and we were jamming out on your marketing plan for the next 12 months, I would ask you, who do you serve? That's my number one question. Who do you serve? And this one's really important to me. So one exercise, if you're deciding if you have a niche already established, or two, if you should look into niching in your marketing materials, I'm going to ask you to paint a picture and identify what is your ideal customer avatar. And so an avatar is what does your ideal customer profile look like? All right. Now, sometimes we spout off things that are not true. So sometimes as financial advisors, we use default language and we say, oh, my ideal client is age 60. They've got $5 million in assets under management. They're easy to work with. They take recommendations and they give referrals. Is that really your avatar? If you pulled out your book of business right now and applied the 80-20 rule to it, is that your book of business? Do all of those clients look like that? Come on, be honest. Think about your clients. Now, when you started saying this and you started painting your ideal picture, I'm sure you had 3 to 5 clients pop up that fit this criteria. But how many clients do you have? Do you have 3 to 5, or do you have 50 to 250? Do you have 500 clients? How many clients are you serving? Who do you serve? And what does that look like? What does that ideal customer avatar look like for your practice? And I would challenge you to have a giant 3M sheet of paper and create 2 avatars. On the left-hand side, just take the information as is. Don't try to finesse your data. Your data is what it is, okay? Those facts do not care about your feelings. They just are what they are. So look at your book, and this is a really nice one to do, and bring your operations personnel into it if you have it, and your relationship manager, and say, okay, what is the average age of my client? What is the average account size of my client? We did this once in our office. We got advice from a coach, and we were setting up prospect appointments for one of a really great financial advisor in our office. But we noticed that their closing ratio started to decline a little bit. So they weren't onboarding as many new clients as we had kind of expected. And so we said, hold on a second. We need to go back and paint this ideal picture. We need to paint this client avatar for the financial advisor. And when we did that, what we noticed was that we were giving this particular financial advisors prospects that just were outside of his wheelhouse. And it could have been a mental head trash thing, right? That they were just a little bit too big of a client and it exceeded their comfort zone. They started getting into self-doubt. And self-doubt is like fear. Like prospects can sniff self-doubt out like dogs can smell fear, right? They know that it exists there. And so instead we said, hold on a second. We need to go back to that avatar. We need to paint a picture of who does this person work best with, and then put those prospects in front of that individual and watch them just knock it out of the park. They'll deliver massive value. They'll onboard new clients. It's a rewarding experience for both parties. So don't lie to yourself. Look at your factual data. Age, gender, occupations, not occupation by who your employer is, but maybe by industry. Maybe some of you really like working with engineers. God love you. Maybe you really a lot of teachers. Maybe these are federal employees. Maybe these are state workers. Maybe they're oil. Whatever it is, medical professionals. But what is that generalization that you're coming back to, that you work with people in that particular market? And then I like to take it even further. So if I get somebody that's really kind of stumped on how to do this exercise, I'll draw a circle in the middle of their 3M and I say, okay, where do you work? And do you work on Mars, on the moon, on Earth? And they'll say, oh, come on, that's ridiculous. I work on Earth. All right, it's ridiculous right now. Let me know if it's ridiculous in 20 years. So we mark down Earth and I say, okay, do you work with clients all over the world? And they say, you know what? I really just work with people in the United States of America. And I said, okay, great. And so is that everywhere? Alaska to New England? And they're like, no, my focus is really kind of on Florida. Okay, great. And so we start narrowing this down. So we start to this huge, big perspective. And it seems like a silly exercise, but it gets the brain in motion of narrowing things down. It starts making the brain problem solve and get narrower and narrower and narrower the more that we discuss things. So then we get into things like, tell me, now that we've got their gender, or their demographics, what's their age? What's their gender? Do you like working with mostly men? Are they married couples? Are they singles? Are they young executives? Are they divorcees? Like, what does this look like? Okay, great. Now, what's their occupation? What do they like to do? Are they engineers, teachers, medical professionals? Bring that one layer down. Okay, great. Now, what about their income level? Where are you most comfortable? And be honest with yourself, because there's a big misconception that people like to whale hunt in the financial services industry. If whales are your jam, go get them. Happy hunting. They're not mine. They're just not. I'm not really a silver spoon kind of person. I'm a bootstrap kind of girl. So people that pull themselves up by their bootstraps, I love working with those individuals, which goes into my next question. And that is the education level. Do you work with doctors? Do you work with college graduates? Do you work with people that don't have any formal college education and training? And so they created things. For me, I love the entrepreneur space, and I love people that don't have that formal education necessarily, because we don't have to undo any of that. They've had to hustle. They've had to, and what I really love about them is they've had a myriad of jobs. So these are not executives that knew all the right people, got put in the right positions, got handed internships that would later get them really good jobs. These were people that were bussing those individuals' tables. These were ones that were bar backing. These are ones that were working 2 or 3 jobs until they could earn enough money to get in a position to do something. So that's part of my customer avatar. That's who I like to work with. But you take somebody like my brother, Micah Shalansky, and we have a completely different profile on who we like to work with when it comes to our client avatars. And now for our firm, that works really, really well, because once our relationship managers know that, they can start putting prospects where they're best suited. My brother, we often joke, he works really great with National Park Service. We joke that liberals love my brother because normally they all have a law degree or some type of formal or advanced education. They come out of a lot of Ivy League places. They're really good on reading policies and rules, and they just really appreciate the way that Micah thinks about things. That's a good person. Floyd and I, we're salt of the earth. We like people we want to go get a beer with. It's just kind of a different, really personality trait. And so once we know that, we can put people who they are best served with. And then we dive into a little bit deeper on, once we've got that demographic information done. And that's that first layer. So again, demographics. Where do they live? Where do they work? What is their age? What's their gender? What's their occupation? What's their income? What's their education? Okay, those are all demographic profile stuff. Now let's go to that next level. And that next level, Matthew Jarvis does a wonderful job of when he does marketing, because he doesn't do marketing events doing things he hates to do. Instead, he finds a hobby or something he really likes to go and do, and he makes it a non-marketing marketing event. And so he really likes dirt biking. He'll take off and go dirt biking. Now, maybe he'll invite some people, but they don't talk business. They just do their hobbies together, and it leads naturally and organically to business, because when you're doing something that you enjoy and other people get to see that, they're happy to participate with you. So we'll dive into those more of those psychographic characteristics, if you will. So what are their values? What are their interests? Come and talk to me about their hobbies, their lifestyle, their aspirations. Do you deal with people, like I mentioned a little bit at the the bootstrapping with you challenges. Floyd does really good with military. Why? He's been in the military. He gets it. He's had several services. He speaks the language. He knows it. Found out really, really well because one of the young financial advisors was working with a prior military person, proposed a question to Floyd. Floyd said, that's the incorrect form. And he said, no, it's not. I've read all the regs and it's a DD 214 when you get back from a TDY. And my dad said, what's TDY stand for, son? And the guy goes, well, I don't know. I got to look up an acronym. Now, anyone with military experience, come on, y'all said it. If you have any background whatsoever, what does TDY stand for? You got it. Temporary duty yonder. That's the big joke. And so when you know the language, when you speak it, now you're speaking to other people that can express more confidence in you because you've walked in their shoes. You know that area. And so we'll start getting into those. Now, once we've got that avatar picture painted, okay, now we need to go into specific pain points that those people need solved. And this is the part that's super important because once you've defined this, you will now have your marketing content outlined for the rest of your life. So you started with painting the demographic information, and then you went into the psychographic information, characteristics, values, interests, hobbies, lifestyle, challenges, etc. We've got this picture on the surface, but what are those problems that most people are trying to solve in that demographic? And that's really easy. Let's take one for example. Let's say that you work with medical professionals. And so you love to work with somebody that's in their 40s. They've got established practice. They're high income earners. They're normally married, hopefully still married, but maybe divorced, right? A lot of divorce in medicine. And then you go on to that next characteristic. What do most people in the medical field need solving for? Student debt. They need to get out of their student debt, and they've also highly leveraged most of their career. Most medical professionals I know have a really great opportunity for cash flow and earning income, but they got everything leveraged to the max. I have worked with banks that I just look at some of the deals that medical professionals get, and I'm like, how did this happen? How is this even legal to have happen? But you have a medical license in a good field of study, then anyone is willing to lend to you hand over fist. And then you run into the problem of trying to keep up with the Joneses. And so when everyone else is going hella skiing, you want to go hella skiing too, even if you haven't been skiing in 15 years. So what are those pain points that specific demographic is trying to solve? And then how do you, as that financial professional, solve that problem for them? So remember, when we talk about marketing, I always love to go back to that book, The Story Brand. It's really great because there are 3 characters in most stories. There's the hero, the villain, and the guide. And when I ask most young financial advisors, when clients come to us with difficult problems, what do they want us to be? And everyone goes, oh, they're looking for us to be the hero. No, you're not the hero. This isn't your story. You're the guide. You are the guide. And a guide can either guide you into trouble and difficulty and then become the villain of your story, or the guide can be the asset that helps the hero along the way. So putting your clients as the focus point of being the hero in their story, now you get to guide them into making the decisions that empower them towards financial freedom, which is all what they want. Right? So if I'm using this medical professional one as an example, then we're solving the student loan debt. And then we're also saying, one of the things I love to tell my doctors is, hey, you know what? Let's make sure you're financially free by the time you're 55. So if you get totally burnt out, you don't have a nervous breakdown. And guess what? They agree with that. They get it. They know there are other professionals that have massive substance abuse because they get into so much debt. They can't stop the wheel. They feel like they're in this just vortex of working that's become so unhealthy that they are desperately grasping for a sabbatical, which means once they've taken the sabbatical, they're a year and a half, 2 years out from being done. And so I want to get involved before that happens. And I want to solve those pain points and talk about the language that they use. All right, now once I know that, once I've listed out all of my pain points, and then I made my T-chart and I said, okay, how am I going to solve these as their guide? What am I guiding them towards? And it has to be a solution on one of those pain points. And then we want to go back and analyze their buying behaviors and preferences. How do they prefer to buy? How are they influenced to make their decisions? What do they need to feel confident that they made the right decision? Is the feeling of status symbol? So sometimes offices are a really good indication of status symbol, right? Sometimes financial professionals, they want to do things as cheaply as possible, and the office becomes just this place in the back of a strip mall where clients come in and drop off paperwork. But if you're whale hunting, that's not going to suit that particular person. They don't want to go back to the end of a strip mall and meet with you. They want the ivory tower. They want the marble floors. They want to walk out and see someone that they just ran into at the country club. So how are you doing all of these little touches in order to fit your demographic? Shalansky & Associates, our RIA up in Anchorage, Alaska, our focus, our niche marketing is on federal employees. Guess where our office is? It's 2 blocks away from the federal building. Do you think we have a lot of federal employee clients that stop in? Sure do. And we do that specifically for a reason. When we're teaching a class to federal employees on their benefits, where are we hosting those classes? We're hosting those classes downtown near the federal building where other training that they have gone to takes place. Sometimes we get asked if we go to the federal employee agencies and put on classes. We will do this if we get a room of about 40 people inside of there. We'll do this for agencies, but we will only send in our top guns for those particular classes, because when you go to somebody's turf, it's a friendly audience, and a friendly audience can be very hard to control if you're not a really, really experienced storyteller and you're not an experienced presenter. A friendly audience can get away from you really quick, and you can become the butt of their jokes. So you got to be real cautious on meeting them on their territory versus a neutral location. Neutral location that you're inviting them to, you're now the host, and they're entering with at least some civility of being a good guest when they enter that situation. So you really want to analyze how you're delivering your products and services in a way that responds to those individuals. Micah and I used to get teased all the time by industry professionals in the financial planning community because our website was quote unquote ugly. It was. Go look at a government website. Most of them don't look fancy. And that was our target audience. We wanted to speak to them in their own language. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes that we made probably about 6 years ago was we allowed a web developer plus all this chatter to get to us about how ugly the website was. And so we did a complete refresh and we made it super pretty and super slick looking. And then all of a sudden we watched all of our user counts start to decline before we could get our traction built back up. And that was on us. We knew our audience. We knew better, but you kind of listen to naysaying and you say, all right, maybe I should make this easier. Maybe I should make it better. But you've got to speak to what your audience wants. You have to look at what they're buying, what they're consuming, and how they're digesting information in order to really build trust with them that you know their particular market. You know their niche. You know what their buying style is, as well as their preferences. All right. So then once you've done that, once you've created what are their influences, what are their buying decisions, what other buying decisions do they make? And if you're searching for one, you're like, gosh, I don't know. Yes, you do. Come on, where do they shop? What clothing are they wearing? What are normally their hobbies? What kind of car do they purchase? Are they Porsche people or are they Toyota RAV people? You know what buying decisions that your avatar has made. You just haven't thought about it before. But if you start painting this picture, the more clear you paint the picture, the more tailored your marketing gets to these individuals. So once you have that down, now you need to ask yourself one of the last questions, and that is, what's their preferred communication channel? How do they digest information? How do they receive information? Are they searching online? If they are searching online for answers, do they use Google? Do they use Bing? It still exists. Do they use Safari? Are they using a phone? Are they using a tablet? Are they using, we were shocked when we were doing our data analytics review that we started seeing our YouTube videos were getting played on TVs. And we were like, what? But what we found was Saturday, Sunday mornings, a husband and wife were bringing up our YouTube. They're streaming our channel on their TV and going over a subject regarding their Social Security, their Medicare, retirement. whatever the conversation was, but they were streaming it for a TV. We didn't even think of using it that way because Mike and I use YouTube on our cell phone or our tablet. That's where we use it. So getting to know when and how people access the information that you're giving them is really important. So do they like newspapers? Do they like journals? Are you advertising in those? Where are they digesting most of their information? And that will tell you where to target your marketing efforts towards. So once you have a really comprehensive and detailed description of your ideal customer avatar, now you get to start looking at how to target your marketing. And if marketing's not your jam, then go give it to somebody else that lives, eats, and breathes marketing. Marketing, if you don't like it, if you don't find joy out of it, it's going to be the last task that you do, and it should be the most important. What's the big joke in finances? The first thing that somebody cuts when money gets tight is what? Life insurance. They cut life insurance. Is what are they most likely to need in the event that life starts going sour for them? Life insurance. But it's the first thing they cut, the first thing they put on the chopping block. And oftentimes when I work with business professionals, I see marketing put on the chopping block first thing. So my problem is I need more money, so I'm going to cut out marketing. Okay, how are you going to go get more money? How are you going to go get more exposure? How are you going to find more clients? What are these efforts that you're going to invest and put into marketing in order to grow your business and get to your book where it needs to be? So where can you put your money into? And if you don't like doing it yourself, go hire an ad agency. There are several out there, but make sure that you're really not paying kind of any more than $2,000 to $3,000. $3,000 is the most I would pay on a monthly basis, and that would be for a multi-million-dollar practice on this. If you are looking for somebody that's marketing and say, hey, my wife or my niece doesn't look very busy, I'm going to have them do my marketing. Stop. What are you doing? Unless you outline clear objectives and you're ready to run that person like an employee, in which you're reviewing everything that they've done and decided if they're going to have a job next month, don't hire them. That's a really bad decision. But if you enjoy marketing yourself and you want to dedicate one day out of your Advisor Perfect Week and just do nothing but marketing, do it. If not, outsource it. You got to hire somebody else. Go on Upwork, look for an agency, figure it out and dedicate money towards it. But you cannot grow your practice without marketing, because most financial advisors that I speak with, they tell me that the number one way that they grow their practice is through referrals. And I say, great, what do you do to solicit referrals? And they have no referral campaign in place. They do nothing. They just are hoping their clients like their service enough to refer people. And gradually they have. But you're not going to get to a place in your life where you have over 100 prospects a year calling your firm to get in to have an appointment if you're not dedicating yourself towards marketing. And not just generalized marketing. If you serve everyone, you serve no one. That's why it's so important that you sit down and just niche slap yourself. What do I have to do to get it to that next level? Who do I need to focus on? Who do I enjoy working best with? What does that ideal customer avatar look like? Go through, paint the picture. If you have an existing practice and you've been in business for longer than 5 years, get 2 giant 3M pads. This is a Shalansky trick. Whenever we enter a room, a giant 3M pad, it materializes, or a whiteboard. And you draw out what does your existing client look like, and then make sure it's in target with what's your ideal client look like. If you have an office with more than one person, then maybe this is a good idea to hand over and say, show me all the information that we just went through for our existing clients. And you, as a financial advisor, step outside on another 3M pad and you draw out what your ideal avatar looks like. Come back and compare the two and see if you are deceiving yourself, because your team is going to go pull all the data and you are going to say, no, these are my preferences. So if there is some type of conflict between those two, resolve it. And then decide to become an expert in one particular field, one particular area. And when you do this, that doesn't mean that you're never going to take a client from somebody else, because even let's just say that you only want to work with oil executives. Okay, most of your clients are going to be married. Are all oil executives married to other oil executives? No, they're not. They're going to have outside people. They're going to have people in different markets. And this doesn't mean you can't take other people in different niches. That's another misconception of this. But it does mean that your efforts and your energy are focused on one level of expertise, and choose any. Maybe it's taxation, how it affects engineers. Maybe it's ESOPs. Whatever that particular subject matter is, go become an expert in just that. And as a byproduct, you're going to learn a lot of different knowledge. And once you grab that expertise in that particular area, then you're going to learn all these other things that go along with it. You know, I had a client come to me and they had Medicare going into Medicaid situation for a mom that had premature dementia, and now we're exhausting all the assets and we're going. I said, hey, listen, diving into Medicaid qualifications, not really my area of expertise. But I can give you some generalities of how it works, and I'll point you in the right direction to talk to somebody who might be more beneficial in this area. And my client was like, that was amazing. We knew if we asked you first, we would know where to start. Thank you so much. We had everything you're telling us. It contradicts what we thought we had read on the internet. This is beautiful. Now, where do we go? Who do we talk to? That didn't do my client a disservice. In fact, all it did was resonate that if they get into an area regarding finances that I don't know or I'm not a subject matter expert on, I'm going to have a pool of resources in order to direct them to who they need to talk to. And that means that every single time they go talk to one of their friends, they're going to say, Jamie is great. You can ask her any of these questions. If she doesn't know, oh my gosh, you should see her Rolodex. She'll get you with somebody that does. And that's beautiful. That's exactly what I want. I want them coming to me first because they don't know if I can help that person or not. It's a beautiful experience. So once I've done all of those things, now I want to go ahead and paint my avatar. And I want to say, all right, I've got my niche. I know who I'm focused on. Now, what does this person look like? What is their demographic information? What is their psychographic information? Where's the specific pain points? How do my goods or services solve those pain points for them? How do I make sure in this story they come out the hero and I'm the guide, guiding them along the way? How do they digest information? What are their buying preferences? How do they get communication? Are they online? Are they journals? Are they reading? Where does it need to come from? And once I've done all of this, now I can map out my entire marketing. And once I've defined my niche, you will see an abundance of information that you could supply to these people. And you don't have to overcomplicate it. Take one subject matter, take one tiny subject matter. And, if I was doing the oil executives, I would say how most executives die broke. I would write an article based on that. And I would talk about all of the tax planning that goes wrong and how they don't manage their cash flow because they're always waiting on bonus income and all of these different strategies. And I would guide them about how other people made mistakes and how I helped a client make a better choice. And so you can create material just like this. And if these people are online, then I would disseminate it online. And I would have, shorts and I would have reels and I'd have marketing blurbs and I would do wherever that person is consuming information, I would identify myself with those other brands and I would go and make sure I was giving them the confidence that I understood their particular niche. I would use their language. I would say, when I work with somebody in this area, here's what we had to be aware of. Here's what we had to do. Here's what happens when another company buys another company. All of this different stuff. And I would break it down on a layman level and I would keep doing it over and over and over again consistently until I really, really saturated this market and everyone knew we were the go-to place for this particular part. So if you're deciding whether or not to niche, I hope I gave you some really good insights and why you should, and probably already are, you just don't know you are. And how do you go about defining that niche? How do you create a demographic? How do you come up with content? And then how do you market to those people to be the most effective? You know that this podcast and everything that we do is all about action items. Today's episode was packed with them. It was packed with them. So I want you to step number one. If you have an existing practice and you've been in business longer than 5 years, give your relationship manager, give your operations team those instructions to come up with your client avatar. Have them do it separate and independent, and then you go create your own. Come together and see if they're similar or see if there's a stark contrast between who you think you serve and who you actually serve. Action item number 2, paint the client avatar. What do you want to be known for? Who do you serve? What does that look like? All that information that we discussed in this podcast, I want you to write down every single line and then go back and fill it in as best you can. Because even if marketing isn't your jam, this is a worksheet you can then turn over to a marketing company, and you've done so much of the legwork helping them understand your particular brand and your messaging behind it. And remember above all else, financial planning is the greatest profession in the entire world. We get to do this for a living. We get to help people make really smart decisions with their money that have multi-generational impact. This is our job. We get to be in this incredible industry. And that is why it's so important to know, who do we serve? Who do we serve so that we can have the most impact possible? TPR Nation, this is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. Go find people who share your values and change the world.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA, the perfect RIA.